Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to call to order this meeting of the Flagler County Planning and Development Board. First item on our agenda this evening is the roll call. Madam Secretary.
Michael Boyd.
Here.
Timothy Connor. Jack Corbett advised us that he has a conflict for this evening. Mike Goodman. Lorraine Cornell. Here. Mark Langello.
Here.
And Anthony Lombardo.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Okay. Would you all please join us in standing and pledging the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is application 3195. It's an application for site development plan in the PUD. This is also a quasi-judicial item requiring disclosure. Does any member of the board have anything to disclose? Seeing none, we'll turn it over to Mr. Mingle.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Application 3195 is a request for approval of PUD site development plan and adoption of specific development standards for what's known as Plantation Bay Section 2AF Unit 13. And this particular unit, I'll show you here in the graphic. Hopefully I was able to superimpose that fairly close to where this is going to go in relation to the development. You'll see at the south end Bay Drive as it curves up. And then at the north portion, I can't remember my unit numbers right now. I think that's 6 at the north. 8 to the north that it connects in, and then 9 is going to be above that. We had gone through some work with that, so the aerial's a little older. We've got some of that work underway now. And this one then being 13. This is occurring in an area within the overall scope of the Development of Regional Impact Plantation Bay. So you have the PUD designation on these lands and mixed-use low intensity for this. And needed to mention for the benefit of the audience, US 1 is down at the bottom left corner there, right underneath our map. You'll see that kind of orange line. That's basically US 1 there in that area. And then the power line, you'll see that kind of jogs through on the right-hand side. That just to the north and off of this graphic is Old Dixie across the north, running basically from left to right, and that's the power line that passes through. The other areas that you see there are part of Plantation Bay, the golf course, other land features that are present on the property. And then the flood zone, just including that now on all of our graphics, this is all within flood zone X, not a special flood hazard area. This specific approval then, again, seeking PUD approval, 132 dwelling unit subdivision to be known as Unit 13 is part of the DRI. The overall project acreage here, 63.19 acres, with about half of it being in residential use. The remaining would be pulled out into wetland areas, conservation purposes, overall drainage, part of the master system there. The proposed density then outlined in the DRI is medium density residential at 6 to 8 dwelling units per acre, with the project coming in at 4.46 dwelling units per acre. You'll see on the PUD on both the PUD and the plat graphic that these are in quad units, and so these will this density 132 units overall will be accomplished in 33 separate quad buildings. Again, this is oriented with Bay Drive at the south end. This is that second sheet of the PUD, part of the site plan submittal. And you have the configuration that's shown in the graphic. The hatched area is a wetland area to remain in preservation. There were a couple of small wetland impacts. You'll see them more specifically on the survey. This is what's known as a pre-Henderson project, and so the wetland impacts have basically been previously mitigated or would be accomplished through dedications through easements to the St. Johns River Water Management District as needed. And with that, you do have some setbacks that are mentioned within the supplemental development criteria. And so with this, if you'll remember, this isn't kind of a conventional PUD that we've had. We went back retroactively for units 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 and adopted these supplemental criteria. And this is excerpted from that intended amendment that we're going to add then a single sheet for unit 13 that has both general development standards and then specific standards for Unit 13. And so it will join its neighboring developments, and hopefully this will act as a template for others yet to come. Obvious question, okay, where's 10, 11, 12? You know, those will be forthcoming, this one being geographically in the spot where they need it to be. And so the timing is here and now for this. Fairly self-explanatory with this, but one part is why I'm mentioning timing. We've been talking with the developer about, and maybe some questions from the audience about 9A, the road extension, when Bay Drive would finally punch out to US 1. And as part of this work, they are underway now with steps to complete that design work and move forward with that construction as part of Unit 13's infrastructure. And I'll let them speak more directly to that. But that is something that, because of that development now, moving into successive phase after Unit 9, as they had discussed with us previously. Once they move beyond Unit 9, and even in recognition of the extension that they have an extension, I believe, that pushes that improvement out to 2021. They're going to begin that and complete that in line with the Unit 13 subdivision improvements. So you'll have that connection then being completed then through to US 1 as it was anticipated originally through the Development of Regional Impact approval. Again, these being attached units, what you'd expect there, you have the zero interior side setbacks, 20 feet between any buildings measured from exterior wall to exterior wall, height limited at 3 stories, the 3,600 square foot lot size, and setbacks, again, that are fairly consistent with what we have elsewhere within the Westlake portion of Plantation Bay. With that, the recommendation of staff is to request the Planning and Development Board recommend approval of the PUD site development plan for Plantation Bay, Section 2AF, Unit 13, and the amendment to the specific development standards for Plantation Bay, Section 2AF, to include standards for Unit 13 as adopted through an ordinance. And I won't read this title, but this is the intended title of the ordinance, and that's, again, building off of the previous development approval that we've had, adopting supplemental PUD development standards. And with that, maybe one final point. I think several folks probably in the audience may be wondering why they're here. The parcel, when we did the notice, we knew what we were doing also, that you can see the parcel lines. This is a subset of a much larger parcel. And so the scope with this, you saw it in your packet, the number of folks that we had to notice because of the parcel boundaries. We advertised 300 feet within notification. We're happy to see everybody here. Usually we don't see this many folks for Plantation Bay items, but if some folks are interested in this, we're happy that you're here to see what the project is, see what's coming up. If you're in Eagle Rock Ranch, I think is what it's called, down to the south, this is not on a boundary of that, but you would have received notice because the parcel boundary made it where you fell into the notice area. And so there may be some questions that may come up. I wanted to use this hopefully as that piece that tells everybody, this is where you are. This still may not give you enough information to be able to graphically show where you're at. But in relation to kind of other projects, other areas, our scope was much larger in order to get the notification completed for this because of the parcel limits that were out there that we were dealing with. So this is a much smaller piece of a larger parcel, but certainly appreciate everyone coming out and look forward to any questions or comments that they have. Mr. Chairman, I'll submit my staff report for the record and await any questions or comments again from the board and from the public. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mingle. If the applicant's present wishes to make a statement, please come forward and state your name.
My name is Jerry Finley Engineering, and I'm the agent for WL Residential Land. I have David Haas and James Stowers with me. We'll answer any questions you have. I don't have any other presentation to make. Adam covered most things. Adam, do you have the DRI map on a slide?
Sir, I did not.
Okay, I've got a full-size one if we need to show people where things are at. Okay. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Board have any questions for Mr. Finley? Okay. If not, we'll open it to the public. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item, please step forward and state your name.
My name is Chris Cookma, 625 South Lake Drive in Plantation Bay, and with this map, I can't figure out where we are. You're talking about West Bay, and I can't identify which street on that map is West Bay to know.
We are televising the meetings, and please also speak to the board. And I'm working right now and trying to pull that up, so. Yes,
Can you
and
read
if
it
you don't
repeat?
mind, I'm sorry, we may not have got your name or address when you were walking up, so if you could.
Okay, my name is Chris Cookma, 625 South Lake Drive in Ormond Beach in Plantation Bay. And you spoke so very quickly, and the map was up so quickly, I couldn't identify where West Bay is. I'm not sure where on the map we are.
And I apologize, I don't know what West Bay is, so that I'm not is that what unit is West Bay in?
Thank you.
And I'm working right now, Mr. Finley, on pulling up a map so that I'll have that as part of it is part of the packet. It's intended to be adopted as part of our ordinance.
Right now, this is U5. This here is the sales center right up here.
All right,
Coming
so
in
this is
Here's Dixie Highway.
Dixie Highway.
So we're
come
coming
in
up here.
This is Bay
turn right on
Drive.
Bay Drive, and it comes in here. So
So this would be it, is this,
this is us.
Are you in?
we're in the Westlake Preserve. We don't know. This is the golf
Mr.
course.
Chair, I have the document camera available if need be so that the audience can see as well if they want to use the document camera that's available there.
Yes, sir. Mr. Finley, can you put that map under the thing right over here? And so,
I think I've got it right here. If you don't mind, if we could refer instead to this.
oh, okay.
If it's possible to do so. And so we have, Mr. Chairman, I'm identifying the purple area with the cursor, and then the red line here is US 1, and then to the south we have the park site and the school site. I'm not sure where the public comment came from, where they are in relation to this, but and maybe they're describing themselves as being in Unit 5, and Unit 5 would be south and east of
And
this
then
project
across
area.
The canal. This is the blue is the canal. You've got townhomes going in right here. Okay, and this is up in this area.
And again, this is part of the
is
packet. This
proposed right here.
is intended to
This is
be
Unit 13.
adopted with the ordinance. This graphic is an
That's-
exhibit
it's
to the
not under
ordinance. It
construction.
must be adopted
Not-
because it shows a location of the proposed development in relation to the overall development of regional impact.
Right. You want us to do this on the map where we can see it? I mean, we're not getting much done here.
Yes, sir.
We're being televised, and we need to do this so that everyone can see this and understand what's going on.
We're trying to understand too.
That's more helpful.
Did you get your question answered, ma'am? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I switched it over to the document camera, but whatever you'd like to put up on the screens, just let me know and I'll switch it.
Okay. Any other member of the public wishing to come forward and comment on this item?
I live in
Excuse me, would you state your name again, please?
My name's Ellie Wheeler. I live in Eagle Rock Ranch Estates, and I think this parcel butts up to the homes that are on Remington Road. And I'm on the board of the HOA there, and I'm just attending the meeting just to follow up and you know, pay attention to what's going on
Okay.
on our community. But I was wondering, I think I saw a map up there that showed Remington Road in the left-hand corner. And I was wondering if there's going to be like a golf course there, or is there going to be lakes there behind those homes that are in Eagle Rock Ranch Estate? Not sure I can. I think I saw it on one of the maps, but I wasn't sure.
For the record, David Haas, ICI Homes. She's talking about phases 14 and 15, which isn't a part of the discussion today. That's quite a bit south of there. What we're actually going to do there hasn't been determined yet.
Okay.
But this is considerably north of there.
Okay,
Okay.
that's why we can't find this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haas. Any other member of the public wishing to comment on this item?
Hi, I'm Marlene Morton. I own a piece of property. It's light manufacturing building next to the convenience store. Used to be Myricks. And it's showing the property backs up behind mine, and also there's a plot next to the north of my property. And I was just the same as these folks, just wanting to know what plans and how close any development will be to there's a couple little properties that have manufacturing there as well.
Yep. I think if, a quick answer, and I'm showing here, I don't know if you can see the cursor, but
Yeah, you're right there.
the purple area is Unit 13, and then in relation to US 1, at this point, as Mr. Haas had said, and don't want to steal his thunder, this being specific to Unit 13, I can at least describe what's in that area. 9A comes through. I believe that the gas.
He's going to be located north into those little notches up there at the north
Right.
of the map.
Right.
That's her location.
And so that you can see there the if I can get back to it, I guess. There is no development that's proposed within that area that within. But let's not commit to that. Our purpose is Unit 13. You receive notice because of the large parcel, and so that at this point, I'd encourage you to keep watching. Stay tuned. It's taken a few years, and it'll take a few more for the development to progress to that area, and let's see how it goes. But for the moment, Unit 13 is not proximate to your area. The probably best concern for you would be that 9A construction out to US 1 to your south.
Thank you.
Any other member of the public wishing to come forward? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close public comments and open it to board comments. Any member of the board? Mr. Langell.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple questions. I guess let me direct them to Adam to start off with. Adam, have we looked at the concurrency with water and sewer with this, and how is that being handled? I know that there's already an issue in Plantation. I know we have no formal adoption of, people wanted it, but we had no formal adoption of precluding any development. But where are we at with the ability to provide water and sewer to this site?
We have improvements that are underway on both the water and, well, let me make sure I stated correctly. The water side improvements are pending. The sewer side are underway now, and the water side of the operation has gone through its planning. There are contractors been selected. The construction engineering inspection side of that operation, I believe, has also been selected, but the work has not yet commenced on the water plant improvements. The sewer plant improvements are underway.
And my understanding is we don't have any formal impact fees in place, and is there any developer contribution to that improvement?
The plantation-based system itself does have impact fees that are associated with it with connections.
Okay.
And I know that there were some credits that were available. I don't want to misspeak, and Mr. Haas may be able to address those, but on the transfer of the plant itself, there were some credits that were available. I'm not sure where we are in that accounting.
To your first question, the issue of capacity of the facilities, there's adequate capacity for both water and wastewater treatment. The issues they're addressing have to do with quality. They're not quantity.
No, I know. I understand it's a quality issue, and there's an issue with the
those
sewer.
are,
for sure.
those are, and we're monitoring all of those, and those are well underway. With regard to impact fees, Adam is correct. There were impact fee credits initially in the sale of the utility. Those have all been exhausted, and currently I think we pay about $5,500 per unit in impact fees
For the 132 units.
each.
Right.
Per
And that
unit.
would go to the association or go to
No,
the
that
county?
goes to the utility.
To the utility,
To the
which is the
enterprise
county at
fund
this
of the
point.
Flagler County Utility, yes.
Okay, that's good. Also, is the road it was mentioned earlier, is that road part of a contingency that the road will connect to US 1 before COs are to be granted in this? Or is it just something that you're planning to do, but there's not tied into that?
It's actually a condition of the development agreement, and as of now, the completion needs to be in place by January of 2021. We have submitted plans to the county for their review. I think we've addressed one round of comments. We're hoping to get started construction on that by the end of this year. We think it'll be a 12-month project, and we should be finished with that by December, January, certainly by January of next year, but we think we'll be done by December of next year. So it's a PUD obligation that we have underway.
Okay. I have one other question, and maybe, Mr. Hart, you can just
Sure.
talk to me about it. The units, it looked like the original development order had a higher unit per acre, allowance, and you're doing 4 point something. But I'm just, we've got 20 feet in the front yard, I think 20 feet in the backyard, and 15 on the sides, and, I mean, they're like, I'm a developer, so I understand the use of it, but how did we originally come up with double that? How would that have ever happened with a height requirement? And, I mean, how was that ever supposed to happen in the first place? Because I was looking at this and saying, this is the original requirement, and we're going about half of it. How did we have that such a high number in the first place?
I'll attempt to answer that one, and only because I go back to 1983 on the project and the original DRI. Back then, the wetlands were about half the size we have today. So we've lost a lot of land, so we will probably never achieve anywhere close to
Right.
The original DRI number of units.
Okay, that makes, because I'm looking at it, I'm saying, I know there was probably a 35-foot height or whatever.
And the original DRI, we took the areas of development and assigned the maximum number of units allowable in there and multiplied them all and added them all, and you came up with whatever it was, 7,000 units, I think, originally.
Based on the entire parcel size, including what was a wetland, now you have...
No, just the developable
Just
parcels.
the developable parts.
Right.
Oh.
But it was at maximum density, so it was at 8 units per acre on 6 to 8 unit per acre zoning. It was 6 units per acre on 4 to 6 unit per acre zoning pods, and it can be hard to achieve.
So let me tell you why I'm asking that question, because this is technically a down zoning in unit size, and if that's what it is, that's fine. I'm just looking at it, and I'm seeing a tight development, and I'm just wondering how that was a downside. But in effect, it is a total for the capacity of the property. It would have been much more than 132 if the wetlands wouldn't have gotten bigger.
Also, you have to consider the shape of the parcel that we're dealing with, and the stormwater management requirements,
Right.
and a lot of things go into it. And, we're not building bowling alley streets. We've got curvilinear streets, and quite a bit of, many of the buildings have quite a bit of space in between. There are a few that have just the 20 feet, but in many cases, a lot more than that 20 feet, too.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Finley. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other member of the board have any questions? None? In that case, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I want to make sure all the conditions that staff put in were included in my motion.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 4, application 3196, an application for preliminary plat and a PUD. This is also quasi-judicial, which requires ex parte communication disclosure. Any member of the board have anything to disclose?
Nope.
Seeing none, we'll turn it over to Mr. Mingle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And similar situation as before, same parcel, so same zoning, land use, Zone X on the special flood hazard area. Request is for preliminary plat approval for Unit 13. This is a companion request. The 132 lots, quadplex development, 33 separate buildings. All improvements are to be privately maintained by either the HOA or the CDD. And I've got a graphic that's included within your packet that talks more directly about that. Talked about the utilities provided by the county through the Plantation Bay system. And this does have, and you've seen Mr. Finley's response letter, the TRC comments that are to be addressed by the applicant prior to the Board of County Commissioners hearing. So with the PUD document, we didn't have any significant items. The preliminary plat has some items that need to be addressed by the surveyor. Most of it's, for the most part, Scrivener's errors, and as Mr. Finley had said, and I agree with his assessment of it, that these are items that can be resolved prior to what we anticipate will be a November Board of County Commissioners hearing on this request. And so, thinking about it, would you have a recommendation subject to? I'd rather not have that, and it did not make that recommendation to you. But just the acknowledgement for all the folks in the room, there are comments that are outstanding that are to be addressed, and that we anticipate those will be done in time for the November meeting. Otherwise, we will seek a continuance of that November hearing so those can be addressed by the surveyor, and with some minor parts also by Mr. Finley as the project engineer prior to us advancing this item. The reservations and dedications, as I had already mentioned, HOA and CDD, fairly simple, fairly straightforward, 4 parcels that are being discussed here. Parcel A, private road to the Westlake at Plantation Bay Property Owners Association, the HOA for the development. Parcels B and C, common area conservation, drainage, recreation, and signage purposes, also to the HOA. And parcel D, the Tomoka CDD, common area and drainage purposes, is the reservation made for that parcel. And then you have several easements that are described over parcel A, emergency vehicles, government services, and utility providers, ingress and egress over the private roadway. Also over parcel A, some utility and maintenance, installation, access easements that are to the CDD, AT&T, Florida Power and Light, and Charter Communications, also known as Bright House. Parcels B and C over at least a portion of that, St. Johns River Water Management District with conservation easement. And then utility easements specific, any utility easements that are shown here are also utility easements to the county for installation and maintenance of our utility systems of water and sewer. Drainage easements to the CDD in Flagler County. Drainage maintenance and access, including drainage and canal maintenance. We do have a portion that's a canal that runs through here that we're included in and would maintain that canal in perpetuity. This is the survey of the property. North is to the right, south is to the left, and east to the bottom, and then west to the top. And so it's changed the orientation a bit, but you can see that wetland impact, that small wetland area in the center, Bay Drive along the left-hand side. And so this is the boundary of what we're discussing for the Unit 13. And then the plat then is based upon that survey. And so in the 4 separate pages, the graphic that matches fairly closely to the survey and shows, and also matches to the PUD document. But remember, this is the platting document. This is that legal instrument then that continues, is placed in the public record, is that which then graphically displays the configuration of the lots and is relied upon for all purposes going forward, for purposes of conveyance, for purposes of mortgage and loans and on the property. And then is the graphic then that we ensure continuity between the PUD document and this platting document. So we've gone through and we've checked for those items. What you'll see one of our notes, and to just kind of reflect kind of the fairly minor nature of the comments, but to also reflect, I suppose, the thoroughness that we go through these documents. And I'm trying to find it now. I think it's at the bottom of this one, that we don't have an overall measure on the 4 lots that were there, that on the boundary at the back of those lots. And so that to keep the consistency between the document, you'll have a measure 40 foot, 30, 30, and 40, but you didn't have the overall measure and the bearing that was consistent with all the others. And you can see it, if my cursor is going to work, it's not going to. At the bottom of this one, the 4 lots that are there. Again, I can't see the lot numbers here. I think it's in the 30s too. Looks like 30. Looks like it goes through 37, 38, 39, and 40, I think is what we've got there. And so, again, these are the comments, the nature of the comments that we have. It's not changing the document, but it is providing a correction to the document that needs to be completed by the surveyor prior to us advancing to the Board of County Commissioners. Well, those 4 pages constitute the plat. We provided separately to you the construction drawings, and you have the comments then provided by the TRC. If you choose, and you have those comments available, you can take a different action than our recommendation if you feel that those comments are sufficient for them to come back and bring that back to you for your review. You can certainly do so. We believe that the nature of those, and with Mr. Finley's assurance between the work of the engineer and the surveyor, those will be completed prior to our November Board of County Commissioners meeting. And with that, we request the Planning and Development Board recommend approval of the preliminary plat and construction plans for Unit 13, subject to, number 1, no construction to commence prior to issuance of a county land development permit. Number 2, no final plat approval to occur until extension of potable water and sanitary sewers installed and approved by the county as a utility provider. And number 3, any subdivision improvements not completed by the developer to be bonded or other surety provided consistent with the requirements of the Land Development Code. Fairly standard comments for us. Again, withholding the TRC comments and that resolution, and acknowledging that Mr. Finley is working with the surveyor to resolve those prior to us advancing this to the Board of County Commissioners. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll close. Again, submit my report for the record and await any questions or comments from you and from the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mingle. Does the applicant wish to make a statement? No.
He hasn't opened it to public comment yet. No.
We will open it to the public comment now. Go ahead and come forward, sir. Welcome to come forward and state your name, your address for the record.
My name is Joe Brown, 618 Elk River, Plantation Bay. Just a couple questions. So we got the letter for 300 feet, I believe it was, and the end of Elk River. And now the residents live by the street name, so I apologize. You guys are unit names, and we have to work our way through it. So we're in Unit 5? Thank you. We're in Unit 5. So at the end of those 2 roads, Elk River and South Lake, is a sign. And I believe that's, you're showing that as Unit 14. So my first question is anything going on with Unit 14? Because that's what got our attention, to say the least. That's not why we're here, I guess.
The question is directed to the chair and...
Oh, sorry.
We're specifically talking about Unit 13, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so only what's in purple is what we're about tonight, Unit 14?
Unit 13.
Unit 13.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry, apologize. So there's another one in purple also, it's Unit 11, but that's not why we're here tonight either.
Right.
Is that correct? Okay. So we can forget about Unit 14 for the moment?
Yes, sir. We're not discussing that this evening.
Can we get an idea? Because that's why we got the letter, and that's why we're here, to say the least. So that's what got our
Want to
attention.
address that, Mr. Mingle?
Yes, sir, if I could. You did not receive a letter because of Unit 14 or 11. You received it because of Unit 13. And so that the purpose of the letter was to notify you of a pending 132-unit subdivision known as Unit 13. And as I mentioned in the earlier comments, I realize folks would have that question, at least, where's 10, 11, and 12?
Yeah.
It's their prerogative to, it is, the development of regional impact is implemented through what's known as the development order, and it is a phased project, and phases could be effectively taken out of numerical sequence. And so that Unit 13 is proximate to other units that are, you can see it here. There's development underway in 7 now, 9's above. 9A is ready to come on board with the Bay Drive extension, so Unit 13 makes sense. Why nobody numbered that number 10, I don't know, but it's 13, and so 13 is what we're talking about tonight. But certainly, and I think we've probably maybe done wrong or maybe done right. When 14 comes forward, and there may be somebody different sitting in this chair, and maybe somebody different sitting in a few other chairs, if and when 14 comes forward, you'll get notice on it. It may be, I don't know how we'll be doing it when that happens. We may have a totally, the futurist in me says we hopefully won't be doing mailed notice, but, because it may be a while from now, but it could be, if everything goes great, it could be 2 years from now, it could be 10 years from now.
One other point that got my attention, you said something about on Unit 13, three-story structures,
Yes, sir, they can be up to 3 stories.
but unlikely?
I think they're going to be attached townhomes, so I think that, I think the applicant will probably talk about, I think they're going to probably be at least a couple of stories on those, and maybe 3 stories may not be possible, but and we rarely see that. The 3-story limit is consistent with other zoning categories. We have a 35-foot height limit elsewhere, or 3 stories.
So, Unit 12, which is under construction now, I believe that's all been, infrastructure's put in. Is 13 tying into 12? Now or in the future?
12's not underway, and eventually you'll see
Mr.
with
Haas,
this
you
graphic
state your
here
name,
that
please.
We should have done the phases in sequence. It just didn't work out that way.
Right.
The extension of Bay Drive is what prompted us to do Unit 13 next. The townhomes that we were building in Unit 7 that are just east of there, the same product will be built in Unit 13. So it'll be, 2-story. Unit 14 and 15 will probably be done in sequence because we have the other infrastructure with Sterling Bridge and the road connection that's going to go through 9, 10, 11, or 10, 11, and 12. 12 has not been started. We did Unit 8. We only did the turnouts to Unit 12. There's no work been done in 12 as of now. 12 is in this area here. This is 8, which is finished. Okay, 14 and 15 are down here, and they're not on our near horizon. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Haas.
And, Mr. Board, I apologize for not directing to you, so
That's
thank
okay.
you.
Thanks, sir. Any other member of the public wishing to come forward? Seeing none, I'll close public comments and open it up to board comments. Any member of the board?
Motion to approve.
I do have one question.
Can we hold that for discussion? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second, and we'll take time to discuss. Mr. Langella.
I just want, if you go back to that graphic,
yes, sir.
why was 11 in the same color? Is that just because it's a multifamily thing? Is that, I don't understand. It wasn't. That wasn't the purple. Wasn't to indicate that this was the project, right?
Purple is future multifamily construction in the graphic.
All right. That legend was below here, and I didn't want to.
And realize also the caveat that you heard from both Mr. Finley and Mr. Haas, multifamily in the context of the DRI is the 6 to 8 units per acre. This project likely be an example of what's to come. It's at 4.64, so there's, it's not your 12-story high-rise.
Well, they have the 35-foot or the 3-story limitation on the project, right?
Typically, it's. I think that Mr. Finley, I was surprised he didn't mention it. That I think the original intent with Unit 13 was to have some condo development on a golf course that was going to have some height to it, but that that's something that just I think doesn't fit into their plans now with pulling out the golf course, and there was some more intense development that was proposed here with these later phases internal to the development.
Mr. Finley, would you step up to the mic and state your name again, please?
Jerry Finley, Finley Engineering. At one time, there was golf course to be done in this area, and is it 3 years ago that we had a notice of proposed change where we deleted the golf course, the other 9 holes that was once planned, and at the time that the golf course was in there, at least I had envisioned more of a high-rise condominium on the golf course, overlooking the golf course, but we reduced the number to 5,000 and got rid of the condos and the golf course at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
my motion includes the recommendations that were previously discussed by staff.
And the second includes that as well. Thank you. Any other discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, staff comments. Anything from staff?
Very quickly, we have received an appeal of the Planning and Development Board's upholding of the planning director's decision on the, I'm trying to make sure I get it all correctly, on the Hammock, I don't remember what the project's called, Hammock Harbor Development, and do anticipate that the applicant will also appeal then the denial on the variance. That has not been received yet, but we do think that counter appeal will also come in, and I do not have an anticipated date. That's all happened very recently, but stay tuned for more information. We'll update the board as that runs through its processes.
Okay, thank you.
Does that come to us, or does that go just to the planning board? I mean, to the commission?
No, it don't come to us, does it?
Both of those, just wanted to update you because you had touched both of those.
Right.
And those will go directly to the Board of County Commissioners. So the first one, the appeal on the variance denial, which I think will come forward, will go to the board, and then the appeal of the upholding of the planning director's decision also goes to the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay. Thank you. Next item, board comments. Any member of the board?
Just one.
Yes.
Can you tell me, does the notice requirement require that a map be sent out?
It does not.
Oh, it would be useful if staff could do that in the future, then people would have their question answered prior to showing up. And then this would be another good example of if the land development code required neighborhood meetings, I think this hearing could have been over probably in 5 minutes or less. Just made that little revision in the land development code.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to echo that. I think for projects of a certain size, to have a neighborhood meeting makes sense. I mean, the comments aren't binding, but at least it gets the public and the developer together to have a more of a free-flowing discussion than in a setting like this. And it's been done in a lot of communities, and, I don't know what it takes to make any amendments to our code right now, but that definitely makes sense.
You could, at the very least, ask the applicants. I mean, some of them are doing it anyway, like Cobb Cole did for the other development.
I think, if I could, Mr. Chairman, respond that I think we had anticipated, at least talked about, some maybe mandatory language for future land use rezonings of a certain level, plats, and I'm not sure we had contemplated getting that deep where at least in this case within a DRI, and whether that threshold would be, but certainly understand that, and then an optional would always be good out there, and with this, I think we were maybe all surprised that we had asked folks to contact us with any questions. We did have some that we fielded before we came into this meeting, but maybe that's the part we need to highlight in the letter, and that I'll echo that comment from the board that these comments on where is this could have been taken care of before we walked into the meeting, and wish some folks would have taken advantage of contacting us as we had asked within the letter. But
Right, but if there's no map that
But a
even
map
goes with
on
the
a pro-
abutting letter.
A map on a project this size, they're still not going to figure out where they are.
But understood. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, then the language for a neighborhood meeting, again, that's not a burden that's ever put on the county. It's put on the developer. There's no burden whatsoever to the county. It's a benefit to the citizens, really,
Well, and to the
for
developer.
which we represent.
And to the developer, because sometimes I know in
Right.
some of the issues we had in the Hammock, I mean, these people could have talked about a lot of this stuff and maybe air the, and again, in a much easier, free-flowing meeting than a quasi-judicial meeting like we would have, where it's very limited how they can talk in the whole 9 yards, so. And then I understand that all you have to do is they'd have to record the comments and bring that back in to staff, and that meeting is just put in the packet. So it isn't like whatever came out of that meeting they have to follow, but it's just a way of getting a bunch of, and usually they hold it within a certain proximity to the project, and it gives the public a chance to talk in an easier meeting and maybe have more open discussion about it.
Well, and the county can set it up any way the language any way they want in the code, but yes, typically there's meeting minutes taken and maybe a note taker, and it's a discussion and opinions are shared. But mainly, though, the public has an opportunity to learn about the project outside of the public hearing process. which is a benefit to everybody, developer included. And the language is fairly simple, not much to it.
Thank you. Any other board comments? Okay, seeing no one from the public here, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved.
We're adjourned.